Ladies and gentlemen, citizens of the universe, this is Roster Watch. My name is Alex Dunlap. I'm joined by Cody Carpentier, and the NFL's legal tampering period officially started about 1 hour ago as we're beginning to broadcast right now here on Monday. The legal tampering period will end when the new league year begins on Wednesday, March 12th at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So we're starting to get news, man. It's not just the legal tampering stuff. It's been the free agent stuff that's happened. It's affecting what we're doing as far as fantasy. I'm sure it's affecting the Dynasty Top 250 over at Roster Watch. For me, putting together what I thought was kind of the version 1 of the best ball cheat sheet has had to kind of make some changes. Before we get to what happened today, Cody, do you want to start talking about maybe some stuff that happened over the weekend, specifically with the Pickens stuff, with the Metcalf stuff, with the with the Devontae Adams stuff? There's just a whole lot to get to.
DK Metcalf, Devontae Adams, I think two of the most notable ones. I was in the air just right after the Devontae Adams one happened, and then it was in the air when the Metcalf one happened. And my first thought was a little bit of shock. Metcalf and George Pickens obviously both feel redundant in Pittsburgh right now. There's no clear quarterback of the future. We've heard the rumors of Justin Fields being in quote unquote like favorite to go there. We've also heard the Jets in that conversation. To me, the Metcalf thing is obviously redundant. Like I said, he gets 4 years, $132 million, whilst George Pickens is in a contract year. This is his last year under his rookie deal, and I'm sure he wants to get that thing done before the season begins. I don't know how. I know a lot of people are out there going, oh, like, look at these two receivers. These guys are both menaces as far as like the dog rating goes. Like, these guys are top of the line, like, don't want to deal with them diva type of situation, right? Having two of them in the same locker room, I don't know about that. Feels like one of them's probably going to end up being there, and it's not going to be George Pickens.
Well, I mean, you're going to need to find a trade partner for George Pickens, and when you do, it's going to be somebody. He's going to want to go somewhere where he just gets the new deal, right? Kind of like Metcalf did. And I don't know exactly what the trade partner would be right now. What I do know is that was when you look at where DK Metcalf was going, it feels like, at least in the underdog drafts that are happening right now, it felt like his price was maybe a little bit artificially depressed just because there was wonder about where he was going to go, what he was going to end up doing. Now he falls to a spot where the original reporting was 5 years, $150 million. You're saying it's only 4. It's really truly only 4 years something.
4 year 132 is what Spotrac has
okay.
In their database right now for Metcalf. 4 year 132 contract extension. So I think he had 1 year on it, but so technically I guess it's probably 5. But
so he's got to. So basically, with DK Metcalf, what you would have been sort of one thing that at least got answered on like the positive side of the docket for him, right, is that he's going to a place where they've actually invested in him, invested in his future. They see him as being a key piece for at least the next 3 seasons, right? So whenever you just, you might have had worries that a 20, he's going to be 27 this year, a 27-year-old DK Metcalf right there on what we kind of consider the age apex, that he would be a player who, a team might not necessarily want to commit to as their wide receiver 1, right? But they've done that now. That the money says that they've done that, and so what? On the flip side of that, though, on the flip side of that positive news, as far as just looking at it from fantasy, I'm sure if you're a Pittsburgh fan, you absolutely love it, right? But for fantasy, it's like, God, man, it's Pittsburgh. We don't even know what's going on with the quarterback. We don't love being tied to Arthur Smith. George Pickens gets hyped up every single year, and he ends up not just getting the target volume that we would need. I had to move, I feel like DK Metcalf should be like, if we're considering where you take him just in best ball, right? So just for season long best ball stuff. Whenever I just look at this, I'm like, well, should he now be going? Do you like DK Metcalf now? About like, how do you How do you compare DK Metcalf to guys like even like a rookie like Ted McMillan or a second year Roma Dunze, Jordan Addison, Jalen Waddle, this type of player? Does it seem like that's the area where he should be going right now?
I would pick around that, right? So I think today I would still probably have Waddle and Metcalf back to back. I think I'd prefer Addison. Probably lean more towards Metcalf in that Addison range over Ted McMillan. And then the last name you threw in there, Roma Dunze, I think should be ahead of all of them. Because there's no Keenan Allen expected back in Chicago. I know people have floated out this Tyler Warren thing to Chicago. I don't think that's going to happen. Chicago also, on day one of, they call it legal tampering, man. You might as well just call it free agency. They go out and get Drew Dahlman on a 3-year, $42 million contract, the center from the Atlanta Falcons. So they've now gotten guard, center, guard the last 3 days, or the last week, I should say, with Joe Tooney from the Chiefs, Dahlman obviously from the Falcons, and Jonah Jackson from the Rams. They spent a lot of money on that offensive line. They're trying to make it so Caleb, can have himself a season and potentially throw for north of 4,000 yards, which I don't know if we've ever seen happen in the Windy City. So I think that Rome is a guy that can be perceived as a value right now. So I'd have Rome at the top of that list, and then probably DK and Waddle and Addison probably just next.
And then as far as the way that this impacts Pickens, and then we can have the discussion on the Seattle side too, just like what exactly is happening there, and how this impact. I don't want George Pickens.
He's a stay away right now, isn't he? Where's he going? Is he like about the 7th, 8th round?
He was going like before. Well, I don't have the exact ADPs. I just have the cheat sheet pulled up here. But where he was going before was he was going around where like Deebo Samuel and Cooper Kupp and Calvin Ridley and Godwin and those kinds of guys are going. Godwin back on a $22 million per year, 3-year deal with $44 million guaranteed to Tampa Bay. Took less money to stay in Tampa Bay. We've been telling you since the Senior Bowl that everybody around there is just, they said, look, they're going to make something happen. Tampa Bay loves Godwin. Godwin loves Tampa Bay. That reporting turned out to be exactly right. But no, Pickens was generally going kind of more like, somewhere between like 60, 65 and 72, somewhere in there. So, sixth round, into the 6th round type of thing. And I just think that now after this news, I bumped him down to where it's like we're only going to take him if we're getting really good value on him more towards the 7th and 8th round turn. And even there, I start to look around and I'm like, man, especially in best ball, that's about where you can start picking off tight ends like Jonnu Smith, TJ Hawkinson, where you can get, I've seen quarterbacks like Bo Nix and Baker Mayfield sort of fall to that area. It feels like once you get to that sort of area around these kinds of guys like George Pickens, where I have him now is more around, guys that I'm kind of worried about. Jaden Reed this year. I think Juwan Jennings is going super early, and we kind of had him. We decided that was probably a little bit cock, maybe, and we're taking the sort of the Ricky Pearsall side of that coin. And so I got kind of down here with Juwan Jennings, a new look Christian Kirk in Houston. It doesn't feel like a kind of place where I want to be taking my wide receivers. And so this cluster, I think with Mayfield, Jonnu Smith, TJ Hawkinson, even like a Travis Kelce or David Njoku in best ball, where you're going to have to take at least 2-3 tight ends as far as underdog over the 20 rounds. It feels like I don't know. It's like we've talked about our best ball philosophy, and we got to get through the rest of the free agents. So I'll keep it quick. But man, in best ball this year, I'm kind of taking the opposite approach that I did last year, where last year I wanted to get, the Saquon Barkleys and the Derrick Henrys and all these kinds of guys. I think this year, man, with this historic rookie class and for us understanding and seeing them all with our own 2 eyes and just really understanding that this really is a good one. It's not just a talking point. There's probably going to be 10 new starters out of this group of running backs. You can start out, you can just jam in your wide receivers and get like, one sort of just standalone piece at running back, and then take like 5 of these rookies and just have your wide receivers completely loaded up. But I just don't see that area where I'm not interested in George Pickens with all this. Even if you were going to get, like, there's talk like trade him to New England. Would you do that?
No. I get it. It makes sense, right? They need a receiver, but that I don't know, man. I guess Vrabel would be one that I think could probably keep him pretty in line. Like we never heard anything about AJ Brown when he was in Tennessee, and there's since he got to Philly, there's been a little bit of push pull with the quarterback there. I wonder if that dynamic works. I think it probably does. But I think the Raiders be one like that would suffice the pay side of things. The Patriots have been spending dollars today on, Morgan Moses. I think they just gave him a 3-year, $24 million deal. Like they're spending money in places that make a lot more sense. Resign Austin Hooper. Like they're building a team like
5 million to Austin Hooper.
they're building a team like Vrabel's going to build a team. I'm not sure if Pickens is truly something he wants to go out and give away a draft pick for, which, is that going to be? I was listening to, I don't know what it was, The Athletic maybe this morning. They were doing a little free agent show, and I think it was, they brought up like, could you do it for a second round pick? Could you get him for a second round pick? Like, I don't think he's younger than Metcalf. He probably draws the same. I don't know. I don't think New England does that. Do the Raiders do that? Because the Raiders feel like they're in a little bit different spot. I think New England is much more open to like, hey, our door isn't even open yet. Let's not go full on here. The Raiders, obviously, you don't really put the Raiders and Super Bowl in the same sentence right now, but with Pete Carroll in his 70s, they go make the move for Geno. They pay Max Crosby. Like they got Bowers. Like if they draft a running back, you could kind of tell yourself a story here where they could kind of be like, we're going to create a window right here, even though they're in the toughest division in football. So I think the Raiders make sense. But even for fantasy football, do I love that? Kinda.
Well,
I'm hands off right now on Pickens.
speaking of the Raiders, would you take right now Jacoby Myers and best ball straight up over Pickens? I think I would.
But do you think that, I mean, regardless if Pickens goes to the Raiders, do you think that the Raiders are going to add a receiver of some ilk on the outside that has speed? They feel like they have.
They've been talking. I mean, there's like I think they're totally live. If you look at the betting markets, I think that they're totally live to take Ted McMillan.
No, I don't believe that for a minute.
At 6. I mean, I'm not saying I would do it. I'm not saying that I would think that you would think it's a great idea. I'm saying
John Spytek, the GM, in 8 years in Tampa, on the personnel side, they never drafted a quarterback, running back, or receiver in the first round. And Pete Carroll, in his entire tenure in Seattle, only drafted a quarterback, running back, or tight end in the first round once, and it was Rashad Penny. I just don't see them expending, draft capital, especially that high draft capital on a receiver that is not elite. I get what the markets are saying. I get like people are like, oh, well, now it opens the door for Genty. Like the same thing is like for Chicago. They're like, well, they got offensive linemen. Now they can draft Genty. It's like people jump to such conclusions these days. It's like, what about roster building? If these guys are telling you they're doing it the right way, or they're attempting to do it the right way, or they've brought guys in that have done it the right way, or learned from guys that have done it the right way, why do you expect them to automatically be like, let's take the receiver that doesn't belong here?
Well, but Cody, I mean, let's be completely clear about this. We love Holmes and we love Dan Campbell and we love it, and they built it the right way. They built it through the lines. They built it through the edges.
Those were luxury picks, though. I know where you're going. Those are luxury picks.
Jack Campbell,
Jameer Gibbs, they were all luxury.
Like
those were all
running
luxury
back and an off-ball linebacker, and he's seen how those two guys have affected the team.
And even Branch, though, the nickel back in the early second, like none of those make sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look back at it, it's like it was all perfect. But yeah, I mean, as far as I don't know. Sometimes, the NFL draft, sometimes it will, the NFL draft will surprise you for sure. But even with not knowing about what the Raiders are going to be doing, just right now, if you're having a underdog best ball draft today, Jacoby Myers or George Pickens?
I think in best ball, I'm going to go George Pickens because to me, he's a best ball type of receiver that I want. I want those boom games. I think Pickens poses boom games to you. I think wherever he goes, he's probably going to be the one.
So you're saying he's gone anyway.
Worst case scenario, he's the 2. Yeah, I think he's toast. I don't think he plays another down in Pittsburgh. And I think with Jacoby, I already have the worry of Bowers getting those inside work and those feature targets. And then I think that they're going to bring something in on the outside for a speed element. Gino likes to push the ball a little bit. I think it squeezes Jacoby a little bit, and I think he's going to be a little overvalued at the current state.
Well, he is overvalued right now.
Yeah.
I don't want
Plus
to
a
change
run
it.
game, like I just think it's going to be a squeeze.
Okay, I think I have Pickens slotted well right now, but obviously we're gonna have to test this. Things change so much. They changed yesterday a bunch with Devontae going to the Los Angeles Rams. Oh yeah, and Cody was saying, so we're gonna start doing the show every day now. So you'll have Cody and I every day. It's gonna be at noon. We got to look or noon central. So yeah, big announcement. Should have started out with it, but that's not a good hook to start out a show, right? So yeah, we're gonna be on every day. So we'll have it on the podcast feed, and rough week to start it because we have a little bit of travel on Friday. So no show Friday, but you'll be getting daily shows from Cody and I, and also daily contributions from Trash Man if he will hold up his end of the bargain, which is never never a sure thing. But anyway, back to Devontae Adams. I thought that this was just a fantastic thing for him, and whenever I saw that he's getting paid $23 million per year over 2 years, and I thought to myself, man, Devontae Adams was still good last year. To
Sort of a
me,
chess move, isn't it?
what?
Sort of a chess move, moving off a Cup and getting onto Adams.
I mean, dude, I think at this Devontae Adams it wasn't just his connection with Aaron Rodgers. He looked crisp last year. He looked kind of fast, really good stem work at the line of scrimmage. Devontae Adams is still good. And we know what Matt Stafford does with these. He's gonna pepper Devontae Adams. And to say that this doesn't affect Puka Nacua in any way, I can't see that at all being possible. So I think with Puka Nacua goes for being like a mid first round type of selection to where I can't take Puka Nacua now ahead of Brian Thomas.
No, not with the news we got from the combine with him being the feature in that offense.
Yeah, I just wonder at this point from the Puka side, what about like AJ Brown and Jackson Smith and Jigba now? It's like Tyler Lockett's not
Jackson to me, like there's no quarterback there and there's no weapons there. Like it's just a run game. Like I think they're featuring this whole offense, building the entire thing around Jackson Smith and Jigba. I haven't made adjustments yet this week for the Dynasty Top 250, but coming into, I should say, pre-Geno trade, pre-Metcalf trade, pre-Lockett release, I had Jackson Smith and Jigba as the 7th overall player in 1 QB Dynasty Top 250.
7 overall or 7 as wide receiver?
No, 7 overall, wide receiver 5. And like,
so
I can't move him up anymore because it's kind of like baked in thoughts for half of those things. But
JSN over Puka for you in redraft?
In 2025, I think so, yes. Because I don't see them going out and like they can't obviously add a T. Higgins. They can't add these are just hypotheticals. They're not going to add Pickens. They're not going to add Godwin. They're not going to draft Tet at maybe they do draft Tet. I don't think that's the angle that this offense is taking. I think this is taking on a Baltimore feel. I think that's what the angle is going to be here. Mike McDonald wants to. It's a very interesting thing Seattle did in trading all these pieces away and looking like they're going to aim towards the draft and kind of get this thing built exactly how Mike McDonald wanted it. Obviously, he was kind of just like gifted Geno and Metcalf and this whole thing that's been there for the last 6 years. And now he kind of puts his own twist on it. And we know JSN is part of that twist. So I think he's going to be the feature of this offense. I think we're looking at – I mean, you remember what he was as a prospect, man. He was the one that – what couldn't he do, right? He's got all-world potential when you talk about people are going to get, whatever about it. But when you think back to, how we thought about Kupp, how we thought about Puka, the last 2 years, like that's truly in JSN's range of outcomes. And if it's a Darnold, I'll be ecstatic.
As far as the quarterback coming in Seattle,
I don't think
the one fly in the ointment is we don't know exactly what's going to be happening.
I don't think Russ goes back there. Like, I think it's Darnold, or do they go after like I guess the one thing that could really nuke it is, I guess, if they went and I brought the Baltimore thing a minute ago. If they really went and like, hey, we're going to take Milrow in the second,
Oh,
like that would make me,
oh gosh,
rip my own guts out. But
yeah, dude, it can't be Milrow. It can't be Milrow.
it kind of sounds sick though. Like, that running
Well,
game,
but no, that's not sick for JS.
but for fantasy football,
That'd be
you're like,
so bad. Okay, well, I don't think.
where are you at with JSN?
I think he's. I mean, I have him in front of like Tyreek Hill and Lad McConkey and stuff, but I still have Drake London ahead of him, and I still have Puka ahead of him, and I'm not sure that that's right.
Well,
Because I honestly, he's been going a little bit earlier than this, and I want to get these wide receivers in this range. The running backs that I want, to build around are Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, and Jahmyr Gibbs, and maybe Ashton Genty if he falls a little bit, maybe Derrick Henry if he falls a little bit. But I want to be taking through the first 4 rounds of these drafts. I know it's different than last year, but we just have to adjust and adapt. And look, man, the reason why we go to these events and the reason why we do all this scouting and we spend our life doing it is we're not doing it for our own health here. We're doing it because we're running a company and we're trying to help people win. And I'm telling you, man, these rookie running backs are really good and they're going too late in these drafts. You can get Jarquez Hunter in the 18th round of your best ball draft. You can get you can get Omarion Hampton in like the 5th round. And that's a guy who's going to start. That's a guy who's going to start next year. Man, he looks like DeMarco Murray or Jonathan Taylor or something out there. You can get Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. It just really good values and stuff. I'm staying away from all this. I'm staying away from like the James Cooks and the Joe Mixons and Kyron Williams and all these kinds of players, right? Even Josh Jacobs, even Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall, all these guys, man. I want to be taking the JSNs and the Terry McLaurins and the Drake Londons and just get that thing loaded up with those guys to where I'm not having to have these, I'm not having to take scrubs like Quentin Johnston and Josh Downs and stuff later in these drafts. I don't want to do it. I want to be taking Dylan Sampson and RJ Harvey and all these guys.
that's fair.
So it's just with JSN, it's just tough because the quarterback situation is not as locked in right now, but I do think maybe an adjustment on him probably makes sense. As far as some things from today, does anything stand out to you? I thought the Elijah Mitchell signing with the Kansas City Chiefs. I've been worried about Isaiah Pacheco. I don't want to take him in best ball right now. I felt like that I mean, I know Pacheco had a season kind of derailed last year, but I wasn't really impressed by the way that Kareem Hunt just kind of didn't even make a difference, whether it was Pacheco or Kareem Hunt down the stretch last season. And I figured, dude, they're going to bring in they need a new running back. They're going to bring somebody in. I'm not going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe here and take some kind of Isaiah Pacheco super early. Or even, wherever he goes way too early, right? Already. They bring in Elijah Mitchell, who's made of glass, clearly. He can't stay healthy, ever. But we do know from his time in college and from time scouting him and seeing him at the Senior Bowl, one of the better sort of goal line backs. Like, I could never believe it for his size, the way he could just find such space there in the short areas of the field and really be good. Really be good down there. We know he's very versatile, very good. If he's healthy, he's as good as Pacheco. I mean, just go back to their prospect ratings. It's like he's as good as Pacheco. And what did they give him? They gave him like right at the very beginning. They go out and they go get him. And all we heard before was that there was a possible interest in Javonte Williams. And I was like, dude, with the Javonte Williams stuff, I was like, even that might hurt Isaiah Pacheco, because if Javonte Williams, despite looking like a mummy out there, he can at least catch the football and be used in those kinds of situations. I think that they had a guy that they wanted, and it's kind of a weird out of nowhere deal for it to be Elijah Mitchell, but he is set to sign a 1-year contract with the Chiefs. Your thoughts on this and how it affects Pacheco?
Well, I think, if you remember right, like Elijah Mitchell, I think was the year before Pacheco, and everyone was like, Pacheco's the next Elijah Mitchell, right? And you talked about Pacheco being injured. Like, this is when you look at like the websites like Draft Sharks that have like injury risk going into 2025. I know we like to use Dr. David Chow, but this is just one that I pulled up right away. It's 90% injury risk for 2025. Like he's had multiple injuries each of the
For
last
Mitchell or Pacheco? Mitchell.
Pacheco.
Oh,
Pacheco even like chest, leg fracture, concussion, shoulder, finger, labrum, foot, everything. It's the same thing for both of these guys. So do I like it for like Elijah Mitchell, like potentially expending assets there? No. Do I like it? Do I dislike it from a Pacheco standpoint where I'm like, I'm not going to touch Pacheco. I wasn't going to touch him anyway. What I think is it further shows that I think they're going to end up drafting at least one of these rookies in the later half of the draft, whether it's like a Montrell Johnson from Florida or a Raheem Sanders from South Carolina, somebody that's like 215 plus. Again, just they're going to have a bunch of bodies here. That's all I'm learning in how Kansas City is really, I guess you could say Brent Veach, whoever has really obviously learned from that Clyde Edwards-Helaire thing. And they just like, we're not going to expend cash here. We're going to go, they hit on Pacheco. We're going to go pick up Kareem Hunt off the street. We're going to go Carson Steele from UCLA late. We're going to go pick up Elijah Mitchell for $1. This year, they're going to draft another running back or two. Like this is just what they're going to do. And for fantasy football purposes, I don't think you can really make a best ball play on this backfield, in March. I think it's going to be much more of a seasonal thing where you get to September and you go, all right, I know what it is. Like, I just want to stay away from this backfield in total for best ball, I think.
thanks to everybody for being here. We've got a ton of people watching over on X and a whole grip of you guys in the chat. Hello to everybody in the chat. Jamie Perog, Terminal Sarcasm, Sly Salinas. Love you guys, man. Thanks for being here. If you have questions, let us know. And thanks to everybody on X. If you guys could please remember to like the show, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below if you're watching on YouTube. That would be really helpful. Again, we're beginning to expend massive resources here to bring you this show daily. So the way that we can keep doing it and the way that we can keep justifying it to the people who manage the what do they manage? Sort of the business end of this thing. The way that we can do that is by showing that there's like likes and people subscribing to the channel. So please like the show, subscribe to the channel, and you'll be getting a bunch more content from us every single day here on Roster Watch. Were you going to bring something up, or did you?
I just wanted to ask about the Houston receiving situation. So they obviously go and get Christian Kirk last week.
Didn't they bring in Berrios today?
Yeah, I was going to get to that, but they trade for Christian Kirk. They give up a 7th round pick for Christian Kirk, who looked like he was going to be cut. And then they were going to get him, but they go get him for a 7th round pick. He kind of feels like that's Stephon Diggs' role, it seems. And then they go get Braxton Berrios, 1 year, $2 million. It's not a big move, but I think what it tells me, and they have Xavier Hutchinson still on the roster, John Mechie, guys like this. One, these are my takeaways. One,
Nico they hate Mechie and they hate Xavier Hutchinson.
But their expectations for those guys, I think, are being 4s. Like they're just like, these are 4s. Yeah. It's just what they are. But my first takeaway is Nico stays king. And I think he has to be up there at that. I think he's worth a turn pick.
Tank doesn't. Oh, he's going to be.
To be honest with you, today I couldn't even tell you if I believe wholeheartedly Tank will even play a down of football next year. Like
I don't. I think the odds would. I mean, I would if it was yes or no. Does he play football? I'd take no minus 150.
Yeah. See, He had his surgery in like December. I don't think he plays football. So it's like, I think Kirk is the number 2. Well, I think basically what it is, I think Nico stays king. And I think what this does is the move's going to get Kirk, going to get Berrios. They have Mechie and Hutchinson. As much as people don't like them, it is what it is. I think it tells us that they probably see this receiver class similar to a lot of people, where it's like, that's not that great. And you'd rather have a Berrios on your roster than potentially like a Restrepo, who's from Miami, or like a Ty Felton or something like this. Like they'd rather have a guy that they know can come in and play the system rather than going to get a rookie or expending capital on a rookie.
A little bit worrisome about Christian Kirk, and that I know it's a new system and it's a new quarterback and new everything, but we do know that he had elevated efficiency working out of the slot. And if we know one thing about Braxton Berrios, you hire that guy to play slot wide receiver and nothing else, right?
I don't think
he does something on special teams, but like he's going to be in there in the slot. He's not an outside guy.
You think they give Berrios $2 million to start though? Like you don't think Berrios is the starting punt returner and gunner and stuff like this, and he plays some slot, but Kirk is the That's my hope. I hope Kirk is just the primary in there, and then Berrios spells him for $2 million.
Yeah, you're probably right, but it's just something to we're just
Yeah.
here reacting, so just something to pack away there and something to pack away there and sort of keep in mind. All right, speaking of being better in the slot than you are outside of it, Chris Godwin, we hit on it earlier, but re-signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to presumably kind of end his career. He wants to go the Mike Evans route and just stay in Tampa. 3 years, $66 million, and from what we heard, he's going to be ready to go this season. I not sure. We've been baking this in to where we sort of have him on the best ball cheat sheets and stuff. I'm not sure what you and Trashman have done as far as the dynasty top 250 with if you've been kind of just keeping a placeholder on him and just kind of holding out to see what's going to happen. But now we know. I view Godwin at this point, as far as his value in redraft leagues, as being similar to players like, players like Calvin Ridley, Deebo Samuel now in Washington, rookies like Emeka Egbuka, sort of similar to Ricky Pearsall, who we've gotten bullish on, just given the losses there in San Francisco and the vacated targets. Is that kind of where you see Godwin? And then also, I think we have to make a corresponding move with Jalen McMillan, because regardless of what we thought was going to happen with Godwin and the intel that we had about Godwin, even coming out of the Senior Bowl, saying, no, he's going to be back, trust me. I don't think other people thought it. Even Adam Schefter today, or was it Rappaport? I forgot. I have ESPN and NFL Network up, and I forgot if it was Rap Sheet said that he was shocked that he came back, and so if he was shocked, then everybody else was shocked. So is Jalen McMillan's current underdog ADP baked in that he was going to step into the number 2 role there?
I think so.
He's not going to now.
I think so. I think that people kind of they've been under this expectation that they didn't listen. I mean, I'll be honest, they didn't listen. I just retweeted the tweet from the Senior Bowl. It was like, sure seems like that's literally what we said.
He got a little victory lap in there.
I'm going to victory lap this thing, because literally all I've seen like the last couple of weeks is like, well, he's going to New England. He's going to New York. He's going here. I'm like, dude, like people are like, oh, like no train of thought of Tampa. And I'm just like, what do you like? He's expressed want to stay. His, I think he and his wife is like a PT or something, or a doctor. Like, they love the area.
Mm-hmm.
He also was prolific last year in the first like 6, whatever it was, the first 6 or 8 weeks that he played. And from like a 2025 expectation standpoint, so he had 50 catches, 576, and 5 touchdowns in 7 games. He was averaging 82.3 yards per game, which is the second best of his career dating back to 2019. And obviously 2019 in Tampa was that the year that was Jameis's LASIK year, 30-30.
Okay.
Right. So this is his second best year from a yards per reception standpoint. I think I like Godwin more than every guy you listed.
So you like coming off injury? Do you like him better than? Well,
this guy's maniacal.
All right, so you do like Godwin better than Ricky Pearsall?
Yes.
Because Ricky Pearsall's outrageous finish last year when he was finally featured, and he's a first-round pick.
Being quite honest with you, I like Brock Purdy. I don't believe in Brock Purdy. I think that offense is on the downward trend, where I think Tampa, I mean, they love Baker. Mike Evans, is Mike Evans. He's going to draw what he's going to draw, even though he's getting old. Like, Godwin is just a target sucker. And I think that it hurts McMillan a little bit. Agreed. But I think McMillan still gets his work. I think they're going to run these 3 guys as 3 wides. Might be the best trio in football, to be honest. And I think Godwin's going to be the target hog of the 3. And I feel really confident about that. Like, you got to remember, this guy was coming out of Penn State. Like, he was looked at as like not an alpha per se in receiver terms, but an alpha as far as like a gym rat, as far as an athlete, as far as
a physical and statistical profile. It was just like it was kind of like a DJ Moore type of thing. Like all the analytics people just couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Okay,
so I love him.
What about Chris Godwin versus Cortland Sutton in year 2 with Bo Nix?
So I think I think Cortland Sutton, who obviously like the last 2 years feels like it's been a trade block the last 2 years. They've made an impression on like the Marvin Mims thing, the Troy Franklin thing. Vele's still there. I'm interested to see where the Broncos expend capital on running back and tight end. If it's like round 1, round 2, and it's like, Terrence Ferguson in the second or something, and like a Trey Henderson in the first, I think that nukes Cortland a little bit. But I think Cortland's obviously going to be the alpha. I'm not sure if I believe he'll be like the true Michael Thomas role. What's Cortland Sutton turns 29 this year, or is he 30?
Let me pull up the dynasty.
Sutton's 30 this year. He turns 30 this year. So I think I'd take Godwin today just because I expect Denver to add a bunch, whereas I think Tampa's just kind of set.
Would you rather take if you were in a best ball draft and you were saying taking your running back 2 there, would you rather take a Judkins or a Travion Henderson than either of them?
Oh, you're saying versus Godwin and Sutton?
Yep. Is that a good decision to have? It's like, man, I'm not sure. That's like maybe just go with the. I think that I've kind of built it like that. I think it makes sense.
I like Godwin or Henderson. I like that.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay, so that is the Chris Godwin thing, and with the Jalen McMillan. I just think that Jalen McMillan now just needs to be considered with guys like who just feel so unappealing right now, like Stephon Diggs. Who knows where he's going to go? Maybe around that area, right? Michael Pittman Jr. with Anthony Richardson throwing the football. Is that about where McMillan goes, or does he go down more like by like the Keon Colemans or the Keenan Allens, who might be out to see, like Xavier Legette and stuff? Is that more where he belongs?
I think he belongs ahead of Xavier Legette. There's plenty of room to add in Carolina. There's something that just happened in Carolina we'll talk about here in a second. It's not football fantasy related, but it's interesting. Keon Coleman's an interesting one. I think I might take McMillan. That's a good spot, right at Keon Coleman, because we could see a real Keon Coleman breakthrough this year. So I think I might still lean Keon Coleman by a touch. But like in Dynasty, I think McMillan continues to be a buy. Like I'm just going to keep buying him because now this Godwin thing comes in. People are going, God, man, I don't want to carry this McMillan guy for 2 more years. Like I want to carry him for 2 more years.
Yeah, he's a really good player. But
there's injuries that happen. Evans and Godwin are old.
Yeah, no, it's just, 100% for sure. Did you want to talk about the other thing that happened to Tampa before we move on to any of these other fantasy news and notes?
Carolina that I just mentioned.
Oh, Carolina. Whereas, by the way, just want to mention it one more time. Cody Carpentier, Alex Dunlap here on Roster Watch. Again, the announcement we made earlier, moving to a daily show. So we're going to be here every day for you guys, usually starting at about 1 Eastern, noon Central time. Today, we had to get done a little bit late because of some other things, but it'll usually be about like that. And then starting through the course of this week and into next week, we'll have Trash Man doing some daily content too, some guest shows and stuff like that. So make sure that you like the show and subscribe to the channel. Right now, it's an important thing is that's what they're looking at as far as metrics for, justifying all the extra effort that we're putting into this. So like the show, subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening on the podcast, please, Spotify, whatever, if you could leave a rating and a review there, we definitely appreciate it. All right. So what about Carolina?
So Milton Williams, one of the most sought after defensive linemen who played for the Super Bowl winning Philadelphia Eagles this year, signed per sources, was working on finalizing a deal with the Panthers about an hour ago. And it looks like the rug's been pulled and he's instead heading to New England instead of the Carolina Panthers.
Oh gosh.
So that's a big play by New England. Well, that was a massive rug pull on the Panthers.
That's just Vrabel, just golly.
Milton Williams. I know people are like, well, Milton, defensive lineman, like that's not fantasy football. Milton Williams is one of the first profiles I remember creating on playerprofiler.com. This guy's got 98th percentile 40, 100th percentile burst score, 100th percentile agility. He's a monster. And I think that, people remember that Javon Hargrave deal from a couple years ago when he went to San Fran. Like, this is similar. I think this deal is going to be massive with the Patriots.
It's just, it changes up. It's also going to change. They
Money.
wanted to give Milton Williams, and then what they wanted to do is pick 8. But they're at 8, right? They're
Yeah.
gonna
Panthers.
they're just good. They were just gonna take They were just gonna take Jalen or whatever else, and just see what they can do to shore up that edge. I wonder if probably doesn't change that much, because I don't feel like 55 from Michigan. How's his name? Mason Graham. I don't think Mason Graham is going to end up falling that far, and that's the only guy that you could consider maybe a 1v1 that you would take that early in the draft as far as that position. Can we talk about Jaylen Warren? And we were bragging about being right about Chris Godwin. Maybe I should kind of, not that I ever came out with a proclamation about this, but I can admit that I was wrong about what was going to happen with Jaylen Warren. I keep seeing him going pretty early in these best ball drafts. And I'm like, dude, are we even that sure that in a year wherever there are so many good rookie running backs coming out, where I'm just like, man, it's a bad year to be a free agent running back? Are we even sure that he's going to be back with Pittsburgh? Because Pittsburgh apparently had to put pay for the round 2 to 10, round 2 10. They had a round 2 tender. I think it was like 5.3 million for a year. And I was just like, I wasn't convinced that they were going to do that. I wasn't convinced that he's a $5 million back. But now I think that Jaylen Warren comes into the focus here whenever he's been a dude that we have completely avoided at every turn in fantasy football for his entire career, because he's one of these guys that the analytics dudes just love, and all the Bo Marchiani's up there at practice just say, look at his quads, and he's going to be great this year, and he just never is. He never is. That could be different now, though.
I've went up there the last 2 of the last 3 years, and every fall I go up there, and Bo, like you said, and everybody else is like, man, Jaylen Warren. And I go,
you gotta get a look at this guy.
And I say one thing to Bo. I go, Bo, who's Mike Tomlin playing though? And it's always Najee Harris. And now Najee Harris looks like he's on the outs and he's gone. He's not going to be back. And they give a $5 million. $5 million's pretty solid for a back. A second round tender in this class. I think we weigh it in the middle of where it's probably taken on the surface. A second round tender, $5 million. I remember years ago was like, was Jerick McKinnon's contract a handful of years ago when he went to the Niners was like a $5 million or $6 million.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of on the surface like it's a good deal, but also in the landscape of the new running back market where Saquon just got paid north of 20. I think all it is backfield insurance and understanding of the position, and understanding of the offense, and understanding of Pittsburgh, because you don't want to lose Najee and Jalen and then have to come in just with Javonte Williams and Damian Martinez from Miami, like a rookie. Like you don't want a fresh face. I think you got your dependable pass catching back, your dependable pass protector in Jaylen Warren, who's going to forever be in this role, no matter how much people love him or how much people hate him. He's going to forever be in this single role. He's going to smack you in the face for 25 in week 14. You'd be like, gosh, that's not Javonte Williams. That's not Najee Harris. But they're still going to go out and they're still going to spend, a first round pick on Amari Hampton, or a second round pick on somebody, or a third round pick on Ollie Gordon. They're still going to go out there and get a 225-pound horse. I could guarantee that today.
So you still don't right now, even with the Jaylen Warren stuff. I mean, I guess it's just a 1-year tender. You don't think that 21 is out of play for a running back?
No, I don't think so. I mean, they just spent on a receiver, right? They just traded for a receiver and paid him. They've been drafting offensive line. Their defense is just kind of going to be good. Their defense is just their defense. They're not drafting a defensive back. They're going to get a quarterback, whether it's Fields or Russ or Darnold or Rodgers, and they're going to want to run the football. Any of those guys I just listed, Fields, Russ, Rodgers, and Darnold, you're going to want a running game, right? And Warren's not going to be my feature in that running game.
People are going to treat him as such, though.
I don't care. They're wrong.
Okay. Well, all right. So then let's talk about where he sort of fits into the landscape as far as where, like, when do you become interested? Do you become interested? I want to talk about Aaron Jones here in a second, but let's put a pin in that. I mean, are you more interested in Aaron Jones with your Vikings?
I don't think so. I think. Well, no. Okay, so sorry. I took that the second way. Are
Rank
you
these guys.
interested in Aaron Jones?
Aaron Jones, who re-signed a new 1-year deal with Minnesota.
Yeah.
Najee Harris, who is out to sea right now. We have no idea. I was kind of thinking that he would get a little. Just coaches love Najee, and I was thinking he would get a little bit more steam here at the towards the beginning. We might hear a little bit more about him.
Hey,
I what
ding, 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 ding.
this
Quarterback. 3 years, $100 million. Sam Darnold to the Seattle Seahawks.
JSN. Let's go.
We're good. We made it through with JSN.
No Jalen Milrow. Okay, cool. All right, so JSN. We have JSN is now going to be connected with Sam Darnold, and hopefully that's not the Sam Darnold that we saw at the very, very, very end of last season for Cody's Minnesota Vikings. Rank these guys. Speaking of Vikings, Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, who's out to sea, DeAndre Swift, who we did hear Ben Johnson say at the combine when we asked about him that he's a guy he's familiar with, and he says brings a lot of excitement and a lot of juice to an offense. I'm not sure I believe him. And then Jaylen Warren. And actually, you know what? For all it's worth, throw Pacheco in there too, because I'm not interested in Pacheco, and I think he belongs sort of in this desert here that I'm not drafting from. But Aaron Jones, Najee, DeAndre Swift, Warren, and Pacheco.
I think I got to go Najee 1 because I still think. I mean, Najee's at 1,000 yards every year he's been in the league. I think Najee ends up somewhere where he's used. I mean, the Chargers make sense. I've thought about some other spots that are like, what about Dallas? Aaron Jones, I think, is in a spot where he's just going to be Aaron Jones. He's at an age where I don't really want to trust or believe in him, but I think I'd probably take him next today.
Mm-hmm.
I think we know Chicago's going to do something because Ben Johnson just needs to have a bulldozer of a back, and they obviously don't look at. I don't think they look at Roschon that way right now.
We'll see if they do, but
They're going to have another piece there with Swift.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I might, depending on how things shake with Chicago, Swift might be at the top of this list if they continue to kind of hit the nuts on the offensive line. If they take like a Banks or something at left tackle, and they shear up this whole offensive line, and maybe if they don't spend on a running back until like the 4th or 5th round or something, you get like a Damian Martinez, like I've said. I've used him a lot today, but I think that allows Swift to kind of be in that de facto Gibbs role, at least for the year. And I think that would potentially put him ahead of Najee, but I think Najee on volume, then Swift, then Jones, then Warren.
And Pacheco after all those guys?
Yeah, Pacheco's
just buried at this point.
I think Pacheco's just buried at this point because, I mean, like I said before, I think Kansas City knows what they are, and they know that it's dumb to now. I could watch this in April 26th or April 24th. All of a sudden,
say that
walking down there with the 31st pick, it's Amari and Hampton, and it's like, oh crap. I mean,
yeah, all of a sudden you think to yourself, well, that couldn't have been, that wasn't the best thing, right? And then the one other thing that I just want, so Gus Edwards, he was released. I don't think that is too big a deal. The one thing that I wanted to bring up was just also, it was from over the weekend, but the stuff about Evan Ingram getting released. I went ahead and asked our good friend, one of our good AI friends, to go through and find the games that Evan Ingram missed and tell me what Brenton Strange did in those football games. And dude, he gets like it's like a difference of averaging like less than 1 target and averaging not great, but something like 4.5 targets per game, and with the high watermark being like 12 targets, 10 catches, stuff like that. We love Brenton Strange coming out, and he was actually a guy who was talked up by not only what's that young GM's name? Blackstone or
Gladstone.
James Gladstone. Talked up by Gladstone and mentioned by Liam Cohen as a guy who they really like. And I keep thinking to myself, I'm like, well, you know, what's not to like here about Brenton Strange, especially in best ball when you get him in the final couple rounds of your drafts? Just any thoughts on that? Any of the tight end stuff in Jacksonville with the fact that they let Devin Duvernay go, they let Christian Kirk go. Who knows what they're going to have in the passing game outside of Brian Thomas Jr.
Well, Gabe Davis is still there. Gabe Davis got that contract a couple years ago. He's kind of been nothing. I will say, you know, he was targeted quite a bit. That one day I went to training camp down there in Jacksonville. That was the day that Christian Kirk was not practicing, and I remember vividly. Like I didn't press it into 2024 analysis back when we were on the training camp tour because Kirk wasn't practicing. And I think Ingram was like a limited that day, but Gabe got a ton of targets. He fits the offense. He fits the underneath work. Brian Thomas, obviously what this thing is going to run through. They like Parker Washington. I like Parker Washington. He's now entering his third year out of Penn State as well. I think that this is a good group of receivers. And they like Brenton Strange, the tight end. I think they like Luke Farrell, who is entering free agency as well, but he's a kind of a run blocking tight end. They're gonna add a receiver. They kind of have to add a receiver at some point somewhere. Probably comes in the draft. And it's tough for me to still wrap my head around this Brian Thomas thing because it's kind of like it's very similar to the Christian Watson thing, right? When Christian Watson was so pure in touchdowns that rookie season, right? And everyone's like, well, this isn't realistic. You can't hang on. You can't keep doing this. Brian Thomas, when you look at him from a receiver perspective and his development as a route runner, like on anything that's not like downfield breaking or deep routes, it leaves a lot to be desired. But it works. So why wouldn't, it worked for Randy Moss, right? He didn't have to have the most extravagant route tree for him to be successful for a long time. I think Jacksonville adds a receiver. I'm just not sure when. And I think that they like Gabe Davis and Parker Washington.
This is Anthony Richardson. You're listening to Roster Watch.
This is AJ Brown, and you're listening to Roster Watch.
This is Josh Allen, and you're listening to